Richard Branson once said that customers are the most important part of any organization. They can propel you to success, and at the same time, they do the exact opposite. And that is why having a successful CRM system implemented is crucial to the success of any corporation, just as at Orbis. Good morning. My name is Andrew, and together with my colleagues Chris and William, we make up Delta Consulting. And through our many years of experience, we are very excited to work with yourselves on implementing a new CRM system at Orbis. As you can see, we've put a brief agenda for yourselves. Please feel free to follow along. Through our conversations, we understand that having a deep connection with your customers is truly important to you. However, we've identified one primary hindrance to this, and that is that you understand that your current CRM system is outdated and needs to be improved. Fueling this primary issue are two other secondary issues, and those of which are, firstly, although you have a very skilled development team, it is a smaller development team. And secondly, we understand there's a lack of consensus within your team as to which alternatives are the best. Moving forward, we have conducted a thorough internal and external analysis of Orbis, starting with your core competencies. Firstly, you have an extremely flat hierarchy, which is fantastic. And what this does is allows very easy transfer of data and information amongst the various divisions at Orbis. And secondly, you've been able to match your investment philosophy with the changing consumer trends towards holding more long-term, safer investments. Moving forward, we've identified two challenges at Orbis. The first of which is, as I alluded to previously, you have an extremely skilled development team, although it is on the smaller side. And secondly, being diversified internationally is fantastic. Although this may create some challenges in terms of coordinating your different international offices and, as well, staying on top of changing international regulations. Moving forward, we've identified some very attractive opportunities for your corporation. First of which is that there is an opportunity to even further harness the changing consumer trends towards holding these more long-term, safer investments. As we've seen since 2008, investors have been holding many more ETFs, as well as they've been placing further money into different indices. And secondly, although you are internationally diversified, we see a very strong opportunity to even expand your international reach. And finally, we've identified some potential threats with the industry that you operate in. First of which is potential for market downturn. Very few people could have predicted 2008, however, it was a reality. And this is something that we must be mindful of and cognizant of moving forward. And finally, as we know, privacy regulations are always changing, and these are things that we must stay on top of, and Orbis, we must be cognizant of moving forward. With that said, I'll now call upon my colleague Chris to walk us through our recommendation criteria.
Thank you, Andrew. And we've come up with 3 recommendation criteria for you today to analyze the various alternatives available. The first recommendation criteria is that it meets your current requirements. The second is that it will meet future requirements for Orbis. And then finally, that your software team will be able to implement this change. And let's take a look now at our alternatives. The first alternative is to expand your current CRM system that you have in place at Orbis. And the advantage to this is that your software team is already used to it, and your ICG team is used to this system as well. But the disadvantage here is that it's really like patching a tire, and this is a legacy system, and eventually it will need to be upgraded in the future. Which brings us to the second alternative, which is to upgrade the system, to build a new CRM system. And the advantage to this is that this new system could potentially meet all of the requirements that you have at Orbis for your new CRM system. But there is a risk in that we don't know what this system is going to look like in the end. And it could take very long to implement, and it is the most costly of the 3 options. And then finally, the third option is to switch and take an out-of-the-box system, and that system would be Microsoft Dynamics. And the advantage to this is that you're no longer in charge of building the CRM system, and you're going to be outsourcing it to Microsoft, which does a very good job in this. And that any future upgrades that happen will be done by Microsoft as well. But the disadvantage here is that you'll need to retrain your staff on this new system going forwards. But we'll talk a bit more about this in our implementation plan. And we provided an analysis and we scored these 3 different alternatives. And if you take a look at the first alternative, which is upgrading your system, you'll see it gets a score of 23. And it does very well in that it meets the current requirements that you have, but in the future, you're going to have to keep on upgrading it, and we do believe it will eventually get out of date. And the second system, the second alternative, the biggest downfall there is that you would have to bring on more staff to implement this new system. And then finally, with the highest score, switching to Dynamics is the one that we're going to be recommending today. So let's take a look at how this relates to Orbis's investment philosophy. Now, if you take a look at the first and the fourth point, those are really about continuing long-term success. You're not worried about short-term gains at Orbis. And that's why we believe Microsoft Dynamics is the best alternative. And secondly, aligning your interests with the interests of your customers. And let's take a step back here and really talk about what a customer relationship management system is supposed to do. It's supposed to be able to allow you to build relationships with your customers. And we believe that Microsoft Dynamics is the best for this. And thirdly, having individual accountability for your employees. And through talks with you in the past, we understand that Microsoft will be able to do this better than just upgrading your current system. Now, going forward, I would like to talk about some cost analysis that we've done. And we made an assumption that 10 units is equal to $100,000. And the reason we made that assumption is because each IT employee costs 10 units. And we believe that salary would be about $100,000 per year. So we want to talk real dollars and cents here. And you can see that building a new CRM is going to be the most expensive alternative. That's because that implementation cost is so much higher, and then you're going to have to train the new staff in the second year, and then the cost will finally come down. Now, between me upgrading the current system and switching to Microsoft Dynamics, there's a very small difference in price. In fact, it's about $150,000 Canadian based on our estimates. But your company has $38 billion under management. If you're earning about 6% interest per year, that's $2.3 billion in profits, or rather revenues. And if this system allows you to have even a 0.1% increase in efficiency, in revenue, that's over $2 million. So that $150,000 difference is nothing. But implementing this new system is going to require a lot of change. And here at Delta Consulting, we have our Champions of Change program, which William will speak to.
Thank you, Chris. Mr. McLaughlin, Mr. Remington, we understand that change is scary for any organization, and that it is important that a plan is in place to manage this change to ensure the proper and successful implementation of new projects. So that is why, at Delta Consulting, we have developed our Champions of Change program, which seeks to empower your workplace employees to become leaders of change. It does so at a few levels. The first is through ensuring that there is executive sponsorship. We want to ensure that your employees are well aware that the executive team at Orbis is engaged with the change process and is looking out for your employees as part of this change. It also takes place through engaging employees through a variety of events, training and workshops, and emphasizing communication between all levels of employees. So that's your ground level employees, your management, and your leadership team, ensuring that everyone is on board and engaged in the communication process and that all concerns are addressed. It also works to build an internal peer-to-peer support system. You want your change champions to be leaders within the organization and feel that they have a greater purpose. So by building a leadership program with this, we're able to empower these employees to help their peers as they embrace this change at Orbis. Now let's dive into our implementation a bit further. Our implementation plan takes place with all the core activities happening in the first year. And the first step of any plan is to ensure that it is well planned. So we're recommending that your Chief Operating Officer be appointed to serve as your executive sponsor for this project. While you could have a member of your technical team leading this project, from the organizational perspective, by having your member of your business team serving as your executive sponsor, it will encourage greater buy-in by your employees. That it is not coming from someone who is just in IT. After this, we're recommending that you engage your employees in your ICG group to have a change management workshop where they'll be able to collect their concerns and verify any additional requirements that they may have as a part of the launch of the new platform. We're recommending that following this workshop, you host a social event for your employees so that way they feel a greater sense of community with one another as well. And after this is complete, that all concerns are reviewed by members of your executive team to ensure that they are appropriately addressed in the introduction of Microsoft Dynamics. We are recommending that you contract a Dynamics specialist to work with your team as a part of the implementation process. By having someone on board that is specialized in it, you'll be able to better train your internal IT staff to work with it, and they'll be able to help make the introduction of Dynamics go much more smoothly at Orbis. And finally, we're recommending that you also review your existing hardware and software platforms to ensure that they will be compatible with any changes that take place, and that you identify who will be the key champions of change within the ICG division as the new system is rolled out. Continuing now to the following 2 weeks, and this is the initiation of the project. This is where things will be kicking off with members of your IT team and your champions of change, and you'll begin to commence the actual introduction or implementation of Microsoft Dynamics. At this time as well, we are recommending that you communicate with your employees your responses to their concerns that were addressed through the change management workshop that took place during the planning phase, so that they're aware that you are taking their considerations or their concerns into account and are able to provide any additional information that they may need as you move forward with the project. After this, we move into the transition phase, and this is where we'll begin to work with you to fully prepare Dynamics CRM for use at your organization. One important step in this is to ensure that your data is ready for import into the new system. So this will take some time to ensure that it is being reviewed and cleaned and prepared, as you do not want to have the wrong information coming into the system and having to clean that up later. Consulting with your Dynamics specialist will be key as you prepare the systems and as your employees are being trained to use them, particularly at this stage for your client services IT group, so that way they are aware of what they need to do from a configuration standpoint. We are recommending as well that once you have a base environment of Dynamics in place, that you would allow your employees to engage in a sandbox test of the new platform, so So that way they're able to get hands-on with the software and become aware of its different functionalities and how it applies to their day-to-day work. And that these employees who receive a small level of preliminary training at this point in time as well to help familiarize them with the system. Your change champions will receive a greater level of training at this time, so that they can help the rest of your organization once the system is fully rolled out, and that your communication takes place regularly throughout this entire process. In the final 10 weeks of this one-year program, this is where the Dynamics CRM will be fully rolled out across your organization. So this will see the finalization of the migration of data into Dynamics for your past historical data, and a cutover from your existing in-house CMS over to Dynamics. A launch event would also take place to bring employees on board with the change, and additional training would be provided to your employees to ensure they are well aware of how to utilize the system. And this will also be supplemented by your change champions, who will provide peer-to-peer support as this process takes place. Once it is being rolled out and it enters the steady state, ongoing training will be provided to employees as necessary, and a celebration will be held amongst the members of your implementation team to celebrate the successful rollout. We're also recommending that continual review of system performance and potential service system revisions take place throughout the future. And to highlight the future a bit more, we've identified two potential future considerations. The first is expanding Dynamics CRM across your entire organization. Right now we're focusing on your ISG or ICG group. However, it could also be deployed to your client services and your reporting divisions to ensure that you're utilizing a consistent system across your organization. Additionally, you could explore additional cloud services. With Microsoft Dynamics 365 and the rest of the Microsoft 365 platform, you can consolidate your systems together into one platform that communicates effectively with one another, regardless of what service or device your employees are using. Now, how will success be measured throughout this process? We divided this into two categories. The first is with data migration, and the second is system adoption. From the data migration perspective, we want to see that data from the past 5 years has been successfully imported into the new platform by the end of the first year, and that by the following year afterwards, additional historical data that is desired is copied in as well. We're recommending focusing on the current information first. We also want to see less than a 1% data error rate in the data migration process. And from an adoption perspective, 80% of employees should have had the opportunity to experiment with Dynamics 365 or Dynamics CRM as a part of the transition process, and that a 20% increase in utilization of CRM software is seen at Orbis by the end of year 2. And any plan is not without its risks. And the first risk that we identified is employee resistance to change. This is something that we wanted to address as part of our implementation plan. However, it still is a potential that there will be resistance. So with this, we are recommending further improvements and enhancements to the Champions of Change program to bring everyone together and make sure that they are aware of why this change is taking place and how it affects their day-to-day roles. Additionally, there's the risk of poor data being imported into the system and resulting in delays to the full rollout. This is something that would require additional time to review if changes are necessary and to clean this information, and it does have the potential to delay it. However, we believe that taking the time to review this is important. So in summary, coming here today, we came to identify whether Orbis should upgrade, rebuild, or change its CRM platform. And our recommendation for you today is that Orbis implements Dynamics CRM to fulfill their customer relationship needs. Thank you for your time today. We'll now happily take any questions.
Citizen integration and customization, which ones do you plan to execute? And how do you plan to ensure that they meet the current and future state plans for the business?
So we believe that with any change, it is important that it be addressed not only from the systems perspective, but from the overall processes. And at this time, we are recommending focusing more on changing the ongoing processes at Orbis as opposed to building the system around it. When you're looking at change management as a whole, it is far better to look at the overall systems as opposed to just one area and developing the systems to match, because otherwise you can end up with inconsistencies in the actual software. So we work with your team to ensure that we are able to customize wherever possible within Dynamics to meet the business needs of Orbis, to meet the requirements that we have for your systems.
Question? How does customer mobile app development fit in your overall timeline and implementation plan?
So that's a very good point to bring up. As we see in society, more and more info is being put on our phones. We are placing much more reliance on our phones. So that is something we certainly did consider. However, this would be under our future considerations. So at the initial outset, it would not be part of the initial implementation. It would be more towards the future. We would focus on the true core of our implementation and really focusing on the cloud-based system for the organization. However, the mobile application would be part of our future considerations, which would be in the 24 to 26 month range.
You mentioned a 10-week go-live rollout period. Can you elaborate a little bit on the approach you're taking? Is it by geographically, or is it by business unit within the core business group, or by client group, and why?
Absolutely. So our rollout is focusing on the ICG group within Orbis, and we'd be starting the rollout with here in Vancouver, and then expanding out throughout the remainder of the locations. We believe that by having the information prepared in advance and having the systems in place, as it is going to be a cloud-based system, it would be able to be quickly scaled across your appropriate regions around the world. So we'd start there, and then it would, over the following few weeks, expand out to your additional regions to ultimately see everyone on board, if not at the first year, with very shortly in the following weeks.
And follow-up question on that one. So in the 10-week period, you have two production systems at the same time. How do you consolidate the reporting?
Excellent question. And a lot of this has to do with the data migration. So before going into implementing this new system, a lot of that data is going to have to be migrated over. And you have three IT specialists in place right now. They'll still be working with, two of them will be working with the old system, and then one of the consultants that you bring on for Dynamics will be working on Dynamics, as well as another of your IT specialists, and then the data migration person that we recommend you picking up as well will be working on bringing the information from the old system onto the new Dynamics system.
Sure, but then still you have 10 weeks when you run those two in parallel, and data changes as you use both systems. And you have consolidated reporting needs to the board, to ownership, where you have to pull from both systems.
Absolutely. And with it being on a per region approach to the initial rollout of this, it would be a direct cutover at each location. So you would not be seeing on a geographical location additional